Hi Max, I'm Carolina. I'm Brazilian, so my first language is Portuguese. I started learning English when I was 8. I'm 26, so it's been a while. And I'm a teacher. Well, I work as a teacher. Technical details are not important. So after watching your video yesterday, I showed it to my students and had them talk about what they think is difficult about learning English, and this way I could have some answers from people who are still learning as opposed to a person who finished the course 10 years ago. And I hopefully give you some insight on what it's like learning English when you're a foreigner. Basically, everything that we consider difficult comes from the fact Portuguese and English are very different. So the more different one thing is, the harder it is for us. This is what they mentioned. First group, teens 4, they are 11, they've been studying for 2 years and they're basic level students. Pronunciation and spelling. Compared to Portuguese, English spelling is just nuts. It's nuts. And the thing with pronunciation is many sounds are different. In fact, all sounds basically are different, and there are sounds in English that don't exist in Portuguese. The biggest problem on that, I think, is the TH. It doesn't exist for us, so we literally have to show the students when they're starting how to position their tongues and lips to make that sound. They don't know because they were never taught before. So the most common mistake on that is to pronounce the either as a D, a T, or an F. So I have heard a number of different people saying I think, or I think, rather than I think. It's tricky for us. Similar words like ship and sheep and hope and rope. Listening and the speed of native speakers. They mentioned Americans specifically because that's what they're exposed to the most. They also talked about comparatives and superlatives. Structures are different, so they tend to take the Portuguese pattern and throw it into English. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. They also mentioned past simple specifically and pronunciation when in past simple, because in Portuguese we have rules about everything possible and that you could ever imagine. So whenever we come across things in English that don't have rules, it's too far away from our comfort zone and we flip. The other group is an intermediate 2. They're teenagers between 13 and 15, and they've been studying for 4 years. In addition to what the teens 4 mentioned, this is what they said. Talking about age, in Portuguese we say I have 26, and in English it's I am, so it takes them a while to get used to that. Countable and uncountable, the concept can be a little strange at times, especially when you talk about things like paper or bread. Okay then. And prepositions. Prepositions basically don't match with their Portuguese counterparts. We have one preposition in English that could be translated into 3 prepositions in Portuguese, and vice versa, one that could be 3 in English. So it drives us crazy. In addition to that, things that I think are difficult when I was learning was future perfect. I just couldn't see the sense in that verb tense. Whoever invented future perfect, I'm sorry, I think you're nuts. I hardly ever use it except if I'm talking to my boss, I think. So yeah, future perfect was an issue. Reported speech was hard at first. Nowadays it's pretty simple. If they called it gossip, I think people will get it so much faster than reported speech. But namely, the 3 big issues Brazilians have with English are prepositions, present perfect, and phrasal verbs. Prepositions, as I mentioned before, just don't match. Present perfect is a verb tense we don't exactly have in Portuguese, so because we don't have it, it becomes extremely difficult to understand this concept. And we don't have many phrasal verbs in Portuguese. We have like 1 or 2. So they just can't understand how you add a certain particle to a verb and suddenly it has an entirely different meaning, and it feels random because they don't really know where it came from and how it got to that point. But we would have to have history of English language in class to maybe get them a bit of a feel of how things came to be the way they are. They wouldn't be interested. In addition to that, we have a bad relationship with Portuguese itself and grammar in Portuguese. We're taught that in school extensively to a level no regular person would need in their lives. So, and it's difficult, to be very honest. So student comes to us and they're a bit traumatized by their school experience with grammar. So whenever you mention grammar in class, they get scared, honestly, and they don't like it, and they think it's difficult and it's complicated. And then there's a number of things you don't have rules for, a number of irregularities, and they throw us off big time. But none of my students nor me mentioned contractions as an issue. We can tell the difference between your and your. So I don't know. But then again, Brazilians make mistakes that foreigners speaking Portuguese probably wouldn't make. I guess that's how it goes. So this is it. Bye, Max.